The time is 6:30 and a quorum being present, I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes for November 15th, 2023. Is there any discussion on these meeting minutes? Not hearing anything. Could I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Next item on the agenda is Agenda Item A, request for certificate of compliance for 15 Ponderosa Road, DEP file number 305-1015. Could you please state your names for the record? And the floor is yours.
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants.
Eric Murray.
So I'm kind of filling in for Tom Schomburg, who's not here tonight. So bear with me a little bit, but essentially we're here tonight requesting the certificate of compliance. Project was designed, permitted, and approved several years ago. I believe it was 2016, give or take. 2016 is the date on the plan. We began working with Eric. We did a foundation as-built. We as-built the whole site. We looked at the modifications, any modifications that were made compared to the approved plan. I believe Eric, Tom, and Joe met out on site last week. Really, the only change is that on the plan that was approved in 16, there was a split rail fence along the 25-foot. Eric would prefer to put the markers that you guys typically put there now. They're not up, right? But we figured we'd come to you tonight, present that. If that's good, everything else appears to be in order. And then we come back looking to close it out.
All right, so you're not looking to,
Well, they're not up yet, unless you'd be willing to make it a condition of it, then we do it, but.
all right. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Joe, do you have some other issues?
So I guess my comments for this project are, for a certificate of compliance, you compare the approved site plan to whatever the as-built shows. And so the two things that I noted that differ was what the applicant had just stated, which is the post and rail fence, which was on the approved plan but not shown on the as-built. And then the second was the limit of vegetation removal. On the approved plan, you can see like a squiggly line that kind of extends from the cul-de-sac at the end of Ponderosa Road, and it kind of wraps around the detention basin or retention basin in the rear of the property. So that's what's on the approved plan. On the as-built, and just from being out there myself, the limit of vegetation is kind of pushed back closer to the 25 and 50-foot buffer zone marks. So that would be a deviation to note as well.
Any additional questions or comments? Not hearing any. Joe, I'll give you one more chance if there's any other agent comments.
Those are my comments. It's up to the commission whether it's acceptable to accept the conditions as is, or you can make recommendations on how to proceed. If you really want that post and rail fence placed there, if you would like something else there to demarcate the 25-foot no disturb zone, as that looks like that's the intention of the fence, but it's up to the commission.
When do you have the markers up? Like Chief said that.
I'm comfortable. I think I would rather just the single markers instead of having an entire fence there.
Correct, yeah, those fences rot out and they get old, and nobody puts them up anymore anyway, right? Yeah. I bought this lot off of Mark, and he got it from Armando. So, along with, Armando, I don't know if you know him or not, I know Dennis did, but his nonsense carries on. And so that's why nobody caught the post and rail fence. Mark, when I brought it up to Mark, he didn't even catch it when he was coming for his approvals. So, yeah. So we're fine with putting every 50 feet the markers up. And, if we could expedite, have a certificate of compliance continued upon those going up to save us another meeting, that would be great. But if not, we're happy to come back.
Because you have a closing scheduled, is that
We
right?
have a
Eric?
closing on the 8th, yeah.
On the 8th,
Yep.
our next meeting is the
If I don't
1st.
pay my kids' college, you're going to get kicked out, but don't let that,
What was that?
don't let that factor into your decision.
I personally, I would rather continue this until they're
Okay.
all up, just because of ongoing circumstances with our
Sure.
agent. So if nobody has any further comments, could I have a motion to continue this until the May 1st meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you so much.
Cool, see you. Take care.
All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Nelson Cross, 8 Maplewood Road. Is there anybody here for that? Could you please come up? Could you just state your name for the record?
Nelson Cross?
And just walk us through why you're here tonight.
Yeah. So there are a cluster of 13 trees in the front of our yard. We moved to Tewksbury approximately July of 2023. Upon moving in, some of the trees are leaning over our neighbors' yards and driveways who are here. Some are leaning in the road, and then we had a few over our house, which we have taken down since. But unfortunately, we have a stream that runs through our properties, so some of the trees are 90 feet from the stream instead of the 100-foot buffer. And on the other side of the road is wetlands as well. So we kind of run into a square issue in terms of just being able to take them down versus getting the approval.
All right, sounds pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments from the commission?
And what kind of condition are the trees in? Are they dying, or is it just the fact that they're over your neighbor?
I think I would have to defer to Joe on this one. Joe was actually on site. I think, some of them we agreed might not be in the best shape. Some are in a little bit better shape. With all of the storms, I mean, we've had very large branches coming down in our yards, so I can't speak to the nature of every tree.
You haven't had an arborist come out and make an official determination or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
The trees being proposed for removal, they're relatively healthy, but they are approximately within this 80 to 100-foot range away from nearby wetlands. But they are positioned right in front of the resident's home. So it is in a jurisdictional area, but
So I guess for cutting trees, is there any sort of erosion controls that we should be considering, or is it?
no, typically, for trees that are closer to the wetlands, we condition it such that, like, no tree debris is left on site, so everything's trucked out off-site. But in this case, it's far enough away where I just don't think that's a concern. The wetlands are across the street, the stream is, 90 feet away, so.
All right, if there's no further discussion from the commission, this is a public hearing, and I will open it up to anybody in the public who would like to make a comment. If you would like to make a comment, I just ask that you go and introduce yourself at the podium and, yeah.
My name's Vanessa Chambers. I live next door at 10 Maplewood Road. And there's one tree in particular that sort of is the furthest out in the yard and one of the larger ones that I would definitely question the healthiness of it, because years upon years, it's dropped really large branches and they fall directly into our driveway. And they've even come really close to the power lines coming from the street. So it's, that one is definitely like a big concern for us, just because of the nature of how close it is to the driveway. And even like the ones as they get closer to the house, they're just old. The woman that lived in the house before Nelson, she had lived there for a really long time. And as far as I know, she was really good in the beginning, like in her earlier years at trimming them. She didn't want to I guess she couldn't take them down, but she trimmed them and then she just sort of stopped. So I don't know if that like changes the health of the trees if she was doing that, but I know that that was something she had done and stopped in the past 10 years. So,
All right,
that's all.
thank you.
Yep.
All right, if there's no further public comment, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
This next item agenda has been continued. I will be opening up the public hearing, though, if anybody would like to make a comment, but without the applicant here, it might be better to wait until they are. This is public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Joseph Watson, 156 Country Road. So the public hearing is open. Not seeing anybody, I will not close it yet, but could I have a motion to continue this RDA to the next meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right, agenda item D, public hearing, request for determination of applicability for David P. Chase, 80 Sawyer's Lane. Is there anybody here for that?
Hi, good evening, David Chase. Eddie Sawyers, I'm the owner.
And the floor is yours.
Sure, we were here about 2 months ago for a new pool, shed, and pergola. We had Nora's Environmental, Maureen Held, come out and flag the wetlands, and then we had TJM survey those flags. That was attached to the updated documents. Having the wetland setbacks and the new survey, we shifted the plan that was northwest to the southern part of the property to be in compliance with the setbacks and the areas that were stipulated the last time. I think we have 4,120 square feet from the 25 to the 50, and we have 543 square areas at the pool, so we're under the 10% allowance.
Is there any questions or comments from the commission members? Not hearing anything. Joe, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Yes, so like the applicant has stated, this is a project that proposes an in-ground pool surrounded by a patio, in addition to the installation of a 10 by 12 shed and a new pergola / gazebo. So to comply with the no build zone setback, it does look like there's 4,120 square feet of no build zone on the property. That calculation was done for the no disturb zone, but it essentially is mirrored into the no build zone. So of the no build zone that's being encroached upon, that's being occupied by the pool itself, which is 345 square feet. So it's less than 10% because the 10% of 4,120 square feet is 412, so it's less than 10%. Per our bylaw, the patio doesn't count into the encroachment calculation, nor does the shed because it's 120 square feet, nor does the pergola or gazebo. So that being said, it does comply with our bylaw, and I can read off a few conditions that I would recommend the commission to apply to a negative determination of applicability if they were to issue one. Should I read that off?
Have you already seen the conditions?
I have.
All right. I don't think that's necessary if you're not
Okay,
like it.
doesn't matter. It would be the conditions that were sent to you via email.
Okay, got it.
All right, so if nobody on the commission has any questions or comments, I will open this up to the public. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to make a comment, now's the time to do so. I just ask that you go to the podium and introduce yourself. But not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
I have
And
one quick question, more of a semantics question for Joe. Part of the condition is the conservation agent's going to inspect the erosion control measures. Can we amend that so a town employee will inspect the erosion control measures?
Yes.
okay.
Good catch.
Back.
All right, so if that's the case, could I have a motion to, for a negative request for a determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting and amended? Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion as discussed at this meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This next item is also continued. This is public hearing, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, Norse Environmental Services, Inc., on behalf of Yvonne Cormier, Construction Corps, 1596 Andover Street, DP file number 305-1194. The public hearing has technically been opened, and I believe this has already been open for some time, but you will, regardless, you will have a chance to speak on it the next time we discuss it at the meeting.
So, sorry, this is being continued 1 month from now, so not the
Oh,
next meeting.
from
but
1
the-
month, all right. So, yeah, in 2 meetings, this will be continued. Could I have a motion to continue this for 1 month?
To the May 15th meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to continue to the May 15th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right, agenda item F, public hearing, notice of intent, Nahata Dr. Nitesh of Tewksbury Dental Associates, 1438 Main Street, DP file number 305-1187. Could you introduce yourselves for the record?
Gordon Glass, Johnson & Bornstein, attorneys at law.
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. Let's see. Bear with me. So I think the way to start this, Mr. Chairman, if you agree, is to kind of revisit the proposal. It's been a little bit of time. We have spent months working with the Serena Woods Homeowners Association through a long process. We have their support for the project, and I can kind of walk you through the adjustments to the plan, and then see if you have any questions. But we're hoping tonight we could get a positive vote. We got planning board approval last week, and this is the last bit of approvals we need right now. So just to give you an update, we're at 1438 Main Street. This is Dr. Nahata's dental practice, and there's a private way called Serena Woods, which leads to, I believe it's 14 detached, single-family homes in the back. Essentially, we came to you, I believe it was, let's see, it was June of last year, we started this process with a preliminary IDR, and then we filed the notice of intent in our first hearing, filed the notice of intent in August, and our first hearing was in September of last fall. So the application has reduced in size. We're originally proposing 14 additional spaces. Through the back and forth in modifying the plans to meet the HOA's comments, as well as planning board's direction, as well as the technical reviews that we had, we actually have an additional 9 parking spaces now. So you can see the blue areas on that plan there. That's actually 12 parking spaces along Serena Woods. We have 9 along the long property line. We have 3 along the shorter portion of the roadway, but we lost a few spaces in order to make the access from the existing parking lot to get out into that area. So we have a total of 9 additional parking spaces. There's an increase in impervious surface of approximately 1,800 square feet associated with the plan changes. So what we're proposing is to add an additional catch basin along the entrance lane, essentially at the bend, the first bend in the road on the entrance lane, pull that whole lane into our subsurface system to offset that peak. So at the end of the day, there's no increase in peaks, and we've satisfied the 10 stormwater management standards through the design. So just to kind of give you a summary of the changes that we've had, we've reduced the size and scale of the proposal. We've reduced the parking from 14 additional spaces to 9. When we first came in front of you, we were proposing to remove a portion of the existing sidewalk on the entrance side of Serena Way and remove some of the vegetation. We've been able to revise the proposal to keep that whole sidewalk in place, as well as all of the existing vegetation. We had 2 access ways out of our parking lot onto Serena Way. That's been modified now down to just 1. We've made some changes to address DPW's review, which were, they had some minor drainage and grading adjustments that we implemented. At one point, we had a retaining wall behind the long stretch of blue parking spaces there. They didn't like that. They thought it made more sense to have a curb and a slope, so that's what we did. We've added some signage, and we've also added a significant amount of additional trees to, one, make sure that any trees that are removed as a result of the proposal are replaced in kind. And we went back and forth quite a bit with the HOA and with the town on planning board specifically to do that. So like I said, we originally submitted this in August. Generally like to come through on something like this a little bit quicker, but there was a lot of questions from the abutters, and that was really what we spent the time addressing. So in conclusion, we have 9 additional parking spaces. Previously, we had 14. We have no changes to anything off of our property or on the HOA property. We take no exceptions with any review comments. Everything has been addressed as far as we know. There's no outstanding conservation comments or DEP comments. I took another look today. We got planning board approval last week, and really work diligently with the HOA and have their support for the project. So with that being said, if you have any questions, I'd try to answer them for you.
My only question is, you mentioned something about at the first bend, I think you're adding the infiltration there, and you said something about peaks right there. Can you just clarify?
I'm just going to
Yeah,
approach the
yeah.
board. So if you were to look at sheet C5, which I think I have under here, right? You'd see that there's a catch basin that we're proposing in this location here. And the idea behind that is that just all of that entire lane, which currently goes down to a catch basin here and into this wet pond, we're now going to capture that and bring that into our subsurface system, which is under our parking lot. So we're going to expand the size of the subsurface system by about 30%, give or take, to offset that. And what that does is it allows for this additional impervious to continue down to the wet pond without without a net increase, right? So all this blue area is going down there, but since we're taking an equal, or it's actually slightly larger amount of pavement out of what discharges to there now. That was the design thought on it.
All right, thank you very much. And is anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments at this time? Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't really have any questions or comments outside of what I've maintained throughout this project as my primary comments, which are if the commission were to approve of the notice of intent and issue an order, the following conditions to be suggested to apply, which is standard conditions number 1 through number 4 and number 9 through number 19. Special condition number 1 is perimeter sediment control shall consist of a 12-inch diameter compost filter tube and an entrenched silt fence. Equivalent sediment control devices may be approved of by the conservation agent. Special condition number 2 is an approved SWIP shall be submitted to the Conservation Commission prior to the commencement of construction activities. Copies of all reports required under the SWIP shall be provided to the Conservation Commission. Special condition number 3 is the long-term operation and maintenance plan as provided within the drainage report shall be abided by. And that is all the comments I have.
All right. If nobody else on the commission has any questions or comments, this is a public hearing, and I will open it up to the public. I just ask that you state your name and address.
Respected Chairman, distinguished members of the committee, good evening. My name is Arafat Khan. I'm from Serena Woods Condominium. Finally, we are here. About 10 months ago, we were in the very same room. The entire residential community was here. And today, I just see that there's one person, is a senior gentleman sitting here, because I guess they've all lost hope, right? What we have seen is continuation. Since July of 2023, here we are in April of 2024. But today I don't come with any objections, or any kind of concerns, because in the last 10 months, with very great difficulty and pain, we have worked with the applicant to address some of the concerns that we had raised back in September, and it kept dragging on. So, as you know that, this particular project, although it looks different on paper, the actual project here is to convert a small strip of landscape area into parking spaces for strictly commercial needs of the dental business out there, right? Obviously, more parking, more customers, more money, and fancier Tonys, we're just residents, we've been living in that area. It's a, mixed-use complex project, and we are the ones who have been actively maintaining the wetland, although for no fault of us, that was some, because of negligence of the builder, he, burdened us with the responsibilities of maintaining the wetland, which we have been actively doing for the last 9 years. And we're happy to do that, and we have learned a lot from the committee, closely working with Joe Fontaine, and we have been sincerely practicing what you guys preach here, right? So we've done that, and we've learned a lot, and I'd like to. I'm here to speak the fact. We all know that it's basically a landscape area being converted into parking spaces. And of those 12 parking spaces, 3 parking spaces fall within the 50 feet no-build zone also. And trees, let's talk about trees. There are about 35 trees being cut down. Again, those trees, everything, the landscape here, although it belongs to the applicant, we are the ones who have been maintaining, again, by some kind of a contract that was signed between the builder and the applicant at the time when we weren't even there, right? So those trees, 35 trees, but the applicant would claim it as 27 trees because, only trees beyond a certain height are considered as trees. Anything below that is not considered and not counted. They can be axed and removed. It's like, a grown-up man is considered like human, and, my 4 or 5-year-old is not considered human. He can be axed. So, in addition to those 35 trees, there are more trees in the 25 or 50 feet no-build zone, which have not been counted. They're going to be taken down as well. If I may show you, in this area right here, there are more trees going. I don't think there is any plan for replacing those trees. But again, I've done what I could do. As you can see, I come from one corner of the world. Standing here in Tewksbury, done the best that I could do to save the trees, and it was because of our constantly following up with the applicant we were able to get those replacement trees. But again, we keep saying trees. We are not getting replacement trees. We are getting replacement shrubs. It's like you take me out, you bring a smaller one, right? That's what we are getting. So it's like first you kill them and then you plant them, right? I don't know. So we spoke of that, and drainage also, the snow storage area. There was a waiver for reduced snow storage area, which again was approved by the planning board. The so-called snow storage area, the reduced snow storage area looks like this. And, I'm not making this up, this is right just a block away from here, anybody can drive down and see for yourself. That's our snow storage area now. We have accepted it. Planning board called it my wallpaper. This is not my wallpaper. This is actually, this actually exists. A 5 minutes drive down, right? At the wet pond that he was referring to, that wet pond actually resides in our property, so any overflow of additional water is all going to flow into. Because of the contour of that area also, it's because of the slope, the water is going to naturally flow down into our residential community, and it's going to flow into the wet pond, overwhelming the wet pond. We don't know what additional problems are going to occur as a result of that, although there is going to be a new catch basin right at the corner. Because of the contour of the area, that catch basin, I don't know what kind of water capacity it can catch, but we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and watch what happens, because we are a community. Every time when there is a rain, our basements get flooded, because we are in that kind of a topology of our land is like that, where the water flows in, and these are residential community with the kids, senior people living there struggling, right? Every time there is a rain, we struggle. And again, I don't want to go in the past and bring it up, but because of our area, water naturally flows into our residential community, right? So the applicant has done best with what they could do. Obviously the main goal here is parking. There was no justification provided for why they need additional parking. I have a ton of pictures here showing there is there's the parking lot, existing parking lot is most of the times is empty, but the applicant came up with a false justification, which the planning board accepted, although, it was, we proved it that, there's no need for all these additional parking spaces. But At first, we were thinking that the applicant was continuously avoiding the hearing with the planning board. Today is our first hearing after 10 months. But when we spoke to the planning board, we told them that, why don't you allow the hearing with the Conservation Committee to happen first, because this is a project that deals with a lot of conservation, plants, trees, and all that. It's basically a landscape area, right? But the planning board was also like, they did not think it was required to weigh into the comments of the Conservation Committee, and that's when we had lost hope. But I'm still standing here. I have a lot of hope. Whatever decision you make today, I humbly accept your decision. But I'm literally running low on motivation here, right? I've done my best from whatever I could do, but now it's up to you. And I just wanted to thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me, and thanks for all the guidance and inspiring people like me who has come all the way from India to stand up for the trees of Tewksbury, because the trees can't be standing here and speaking for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, could I have an opportunity to respond to some of those comments?
Yeah, sure.
Just want to point out, because there were quite a few comments put forward there, that I think the key phrase was stated around about the first sentence, which is there are no objections or concerns to the project. I think it's important that the commission knows that we've worked extensively with the condominium association, that we reached a written signed legal agreement with the association. We altered the project based on input from the association, and based on that written legal agreement, they've expressed and signed onto no objections to the project and support in favor of the project. Thanks.
All right. The public hearing is still open. If there's any other members of the public who would like to make a comment, you still have time to do so. Not seeing anybody else get up. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right. And finally, for this notice of intent, if there's no further questions or comments from the commission, could I have a motion to,
Dan, can I just say, this is like really heartbreaking to hear that these people have flooding issues now, because we know what's going to happen. They're going to end up coming in next year and ask us to put in sump pumps and have those drained into the wetlands, and I understand when that happens with a house that was built in 1947, but this was just built in 2019. I mean, this is a really good example of bad design that doesn't meet the needs of the building. This parking lot is very tight. It's difficult to get in and out of. It's clearly too small for the building. And so now they've come back and asked for more parking, which is along this roadway, which just looks so dangerous to me, parallel parking along this very narrow roadway, which is the only way for these 12 houses to get in and out of that development. It's just, it seems like 9 spaces, really? Can't you do something more creative? Like have satellite parking for the employees? St. Williams is right across the street. They've got acres of parking. Rent some spots from them for the employees and have them, there's a crosswalk there already, Or just schedule people differently so it's not, so the parking lot doesn't get filled up. It sounds like it doesn't get filled up anyways. I know I went by at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and there was not one car in there. My dentist office is filled at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So this just seems like really overkill. It seems like there could be much more creative solutions. You're going to be flooding these homes, and they're going to be having to come in with sump pumps. It's just, we've got a bad design, and we're layering bad design on top of it.
So,
And
Mr.
the
Chairman, I have to address those comments. This is not bad design. Just the idea that a member would suggest it's bad design reflects on my company. It also reflects on the Department of Public Works, who's reviewed this. It reflects on your agent. It reflects on DEP. It reflects on the HOA that we spent 10 months working with and gained their support, right? We gained their support through all the changes that we were able to concede and make, I honestly take offense to that. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that that's right. The HOA also had their own civil engineer review our information, right? There's no outstanding comments from those engineers, so I understand the empathy and sympathy, right? But I just want to note it, I absolutely take exception to those comments.
I wish I could take both sides. At risk of saying too much, I do wish I could hold you to a higher standard. Like, I'm not, this could be better. I don't think anybody, should take offense to saying that you could do a little bit better than what's.
My job is to do
But,
design work,
yes,
and when
and-
someone suggests that we do poor design work, it reflects on everyone who's been in this process for 10 months. This is an extremely challenging little process. It should not have taken 10 months to do it, but it did, and we finally got there. I just think it's really important to recognize that all 10 of the stormwater management standards are addressed. All of the local bylaw is addressed. We have the support of the same person that was here commenting. And I think that's really important. No objections or no concerns.
All right. With all of that being said, the public hearing has officially been closed, so any additional comments we make right now, the public unfortunately cannot have their own response time. So I'm going to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve this notice of intent. And I will be, I will entertain the motion to approve this notice. Yeah, as discussed.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I am going to go in reverse order. All those who are voting no, please say nay at this time.
Nay.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is public hearing, notice of intent, Civil Design Consultants, Inc., on behalf of LNG Main Street LLC, 1167, 1177, and 1187 Main Street, DEP file number 305-1192. Is there anybody here for that?
Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants.
Gordon Glass, Johnson and Bornstein, attorneys at law.
Could you please move that microphone? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Gordon Glass, Johnson and Bornstein.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is a second project that has been going on for some time, and I hope that we've made the adjustments that will make the commission a little bit more comfortable with the project in general. So again, I'll just kind of give you the overview here. What I want to do is just kind of present the changes that we made, and then ask that you consider approving the project. So to revisit the timeline, we're here in October, we're here in November, we're here in January, March, and this is our fifth meeting as I can remember. At the last, a big part of this project had to do with photos that were captured from another project that indicated that the stream bed within the B-series wetland was dry of Darby Brook. So we've made the case repeatedly over the last few months that that alone satisfies the regulation. We still believe that it does. But we certainly recognize the position of the commission when we met in March, that there was some consternation or general unease about proceeding in that direction. So we took it upon ourselves to kind of take a step back, take another look at the project, and approach this from a different manner. So I'm sure you're all aware of the the redevelopment standards in the act, which is 310 CMR 10.585. And essentially what that does is, if we were to assume that that B-series wetland, the stream that's in there was in fact perennial, it gives us a certain number of standards, in addition to everything else, that we would need to meet to allow you to approve the project. So when we kind of started looking at this, we said, okay, well, let's look at that, because even with the direction we got last fall, as we made changes, we shrunk it down. I think we originally came in with 28 units. That required a certain amount of parking. We've cut it down to 24, I believe, and that requires less. So we're able to modify and reduce the amount of parking. As we went through the process, we pushed everything as far away from the wetland and from that B-series wetland as we possibly could during the process. And fortunately, that's paid dividends now. So the steps that we've taken since the last time that we met in March was we had Norse Environmental go out and flag what is the bank of that stream channel in the B-series wetland. Mr. Fontaine also went out, reviewed the flagging, agreed with the location of the flags in the ground. We put our survey team out there. They located those flags. We offset the flags 200 feet, which affords it a riverfront area. And then what we did is we went through the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 or 8 different standards specific to 10.58, right? So at that point, this was the end of March, give or take. We provided this letter dated March 20th, in which we kind of go through our reasoning and we summarize how the project as designed now meets those 8 standards. In essence, what it comes down to is if you look at that big, heavy, dark blue line, right? I'm just going to approach that. If you look at this big, heavy, dark line here, this is the result of calling this a wetland area, right? So that's your 200 foot. And so if you were to look at our letter dated March 20th, in the back of that, we have figures that quantify the existing disturbance on site within that area, as well as the proposed disturbance that will be there when and if the project is constructed. And in essence, we have approximately 238 square feet less proposed disturbance within that blue heavy line than is out there today. So then we kind of just walk through the 6 or 7 standards. We did that in the letter. Essentially, we have a reduction and an improvement within the within the 200-foot riverfront area. We comply with all the stormwater management standards. That's been confirmed through, I guess, everybody's review, but specifically the peer review that reviewed it for the planning board. We don't have any impacts proposed closer than any impacts exist today. And in fact, the tennis court, right, is about 39 feet away from riverfront flag 1A. The closest impervious surface in the proposed condition will be 114 feet away. So almost 3 times more of a buffer will be provided under the proposed condition versus the existing condition. With that said, to just clean up our paperwork, we just resubmitted an updated notice of intent form. One of the things when you have an additional resource area is it just costs more from a filing fee perspective. So that's, we wanted to capture that and make sure that the right boxes were clicked in the notice of intent. With that said, I think that kind of summarizes what our approach was. So there literally has been no changes to the site plan of any substance, right? What we've done is we flagged it, we've conceded that it's not worth arguing about perennial versus intermittent in this case, right? In some cases in the future, it probably will be, but in this case, it isn't because we meet that standard of 10.58, 585. And the idea was not to beat a dead horse, not to put you guys in the position where you had to make a determination that was clear to me that you weren't comfortable with, so we've kind of changed our approach. And with that said, if there's anything I can answer for you, I will do my best.
All right. Any questions or comments from the commission? Not seeing anything. Joe, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
My comments would just be reiterating some of the points made by the applicant. So the last time the commission had kind of discussed this with the applicant, it was again kind of talking about intermittent versus perennial for Darby Brook all the way through. I think the C series has always been maintained as perennial, but the B series was kind of what was up for debate. So the applicant has gone ahead and conceded that it is perennial, and then took that to, and applied that to the Wetland Protection Act regulations, which would be 310 CMR 10.585, which is redevelopment within riverfront area. It's a relatively short section of the regs. It has 5 to 7 different criteria depending on the project. So they've supplied a narrative kind of explaining how they comply with this section of the riverfront area now that it is considered riverfront area. And the main thing with this part of the regulations is that it should provide an overall improvement to the site. And usually that's interpreted as kind of having a net decrease in impervious surface, which they have provided. To that note, the regulations, these 5 to 7 different criteria seem to prioritize removing impervious surface as close to the riverfront area as possible, so kind of shifting any impervious closer to the riverfront and away from it, which they have done, if you notice, within the first 100 feet of the riverfront area. At least for this last property where the multi-family home development's proposed, there is no impervious surface within the 100 feet. That's correct, yeah? Like,
Say that?
just within the 1167 parcel, there's no impervious there besides the drainage pipe maybe?
Correct.
Yeah. So, in short, they've supplied information that complies with the riverfront area redevelopment standards. I have a few conditions that I would recommend applying to an approved notice of intent through an order of conditions, but unless the commission has any comments they want to air first before I read those.
Go ahead.
Okay. So these conditions I would recommend are standard conditions number 1 through number 4 and number 9 through number 19. Special condition number 1, perimeter sediment control shall consist of a 12-inch diameter compost filter tube and an entrenched silt fence. Equivalent sediment control devices may be approved of by the conservation agent. Special condition number 2, an approved SWIP shall be submitted to the Conservation Commission prior to the commencement of construction activities. Copies of all reports required under the SWIP shall be provided to the Conservation Commission. Special condition number 3 is the long-term operation and maintenance plan as provided within the drainage report shall be abided by. One last note. Hold on one sec. Yep, that's it.
All right. Unless anybody on the commission has any questions or comments, I'm going to open it up to the public hearing. All right, I just ask that if you have a comment or question, please go up and introduce yourself, name and address.
Hi, my name is Keith Bias from 1147 Main Street, Cottage Place condos. And one of the things that, I don't know, I must be misunderstanding it, but you're supposed to be within 200 feet of a river or defined, perennial stream. But the house that they're going to move is within, it's closer than 200 feet to that. So I don't understand how this works.
That house in the corner there?
Yeah, this is the one they're going to move, right?
Yeah, so that's technically not in riverfront area.
I thought that was a perennial stream, so it would be.
It is a perennial stream.
Okay.
But how the regulations define the boundaries of riverfront area, for that particular area is perpendicular to where, perpendicular to the direction of the culvert. So that's where the culvert pipe enters and goes underneath Main Street. So it's perpendicular to that, so that's why you see the sharp linear feature there.
Is that these lines here? I don't quite
No, that's
understand.
it's the first line, the first blue line southwest of that. Yeah, right there, yep. So that's the perpendicular direction of the culvert pipe. That's just how the regulations define the boundaries.
Okay, because this here is way less than 200 feet.
Yes, understood. But it's technically, based off the regulation, not included in the boundary of riverfront area.
I don't really understand that because it says 200 feet, and that's a
Yeah.
lot closer
So-
than 200 feet.
Yeah, so myself and the applicant had reviewed how that was defined.
I'm just concerned that we're going to have the same issues that 1438 Main Street did, where they went through all the approvals, they got everything, they dotted their i's and crossed their t's, and they got water in their basement that was built a couple of years ago. I'm just concerned about that. The same thing happening here. I'm concerned about getting water on our property that we didn't have before because they're moving all this stuff, they're building these things, and they're not, they say everything's okay, everything meets the code, everything meets the state mandate, but again, they said the same thing on 1438 Main Street, and look what happened there. So I think we should look at this a little closer. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if there's anybody who would like to make a response, I will allow you, but you're under no obligation.
I would probably just leave it as the commission knows, unlike a special permit or a variance, these are non-discretionary, and we've put, as the conservation agent pointed out, we've put forth evidence showing our compliance fully with the regulations. Thank you.
I can't hear a thing you said.
Can you pull that microphone a little bit closer?
To sum up what I just said, it was simply that we've complied with the plain language of the Wetlands Protection Act riverfront regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further public comment, I will,
Hi, Paula Rowe, Cottage Place. So last time we were here, he was required to get more recent pictures. Did we get more recent pictures of the stream? Because it's been raining like the last 3 weekends, if not last weekend, the stream is high.
Dan, can I answer
Did you
this?
take that into consideration?
yeah.
Did you get the new pictures?
So the pictures were being required under the assumption that they were still maintaining that the stream was intermittent, at least partially. So instead of that, they've conceded that all of the stream is perennial. So because they're presuming that, now they don't need to get the pictures, because the pictures are only required if you're trying to overcome the presumption that a stream is perennial. So instead of that, they are assuming that it is perennial.
Okay, and I have another question. So back in the day, you said that they would never allow the pipe that goes under the McClellan Oil parking. Did that change the stream from, say, I don't know, was that behind McClellan Oil, that it was, say, perennial, I'm not sure if that's the right one, to what it is now? Did that pipe that would not be allowed now did that change the stream because of the pipe that flows into our stream?
So is the question, did the pipe change the stream from intermittent to perennial?
Right.
I don't know the full effects of what that pipe had on the stream characteristics.
Because water does come out of that pipe
Yep.
into our stream.
Yep.
So did that, that's my question, did that change the pipe that was allowed how many years ago? I think, you know, if that was the way it is, then I think if that was an error and it wouldn't be allowed now, I think it should be made, you know, I don't want to say good, to make it compensate for that pipe nowadays should not have been allowed.
Mr. Chairman, I guess the only thing I'd say to that is that standards change over time, right? So I don't know how many culverts there are from our property down to the end of Darby Brook, but I know there's one under 38, which is either Tewksbury or DOT. Those culverts were put in based on the practices in place at the time, just like our culvert was. Everything was reviewed and approved, and it was done consistent with the regulations at that time. And that property is not really in discussion. What we're talking about is the proposal that we have in front of us now that complies with, you know, we've really tried to bend over backwards to present this to you in a way that you could accept.
Well, I guess my question is, if that pipe was allowed then, it should not have happened, and it would not be allowed now. Does that flow of water that's coming from that stream, when you build your building, it's going to cause more water, it's going to cause more water into our stream?
So concerns over flooding are addressed through compliance with the stormwater management standards. And so the regulations are the mediator between the issuing authority, which is the commission, and the applicant. So we kind of both try to determine whether there's full compliance with the regulations, because that's kind of the middle ground where we have defined conditions of how to reach an agreement of whether you comply or not. Where there is room for discretion, that's where the commission can take it from there. But in this case, it's just relatively black and white whether you comply or not with the standards, and that's what both parties have to go off of. And we did engage a third-party consultant to help us through that process, and they have reviewed the project and ensured compliance with it. So as far as flooding goes and adding more water to the stream, that's how that's addressed. And the commission, together with the planning board, has ensured that through a third-party review, a separate engineering firm.
You sure that we're not going to get water flooding? Is that what you're saying? You're assuring us that we're not going to get water?
I'm saying that,
Getting now?
I'm saying that any concern over flooding derived from the property and this development in particular is addressed through compliance with the stormwater management standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Was 1438 Main Street addressed in a similar fashion?
If you have to make a comment, you have to go up there.
And judging by that, it might not be something that we can answer because it's a different project.
Well, my question is 1438 addressed in the same fashion? Because whatever it was didn't work, because they have water in the basement. That's my question. I think it's completely relevant.
I don't know how that project was approved. I can assume that, you know, they complied with all relevant statutes in the
That wasn't brought
law.
before this board?
What's that?
That wasn't brought before this board?
It was.
It was.
Okay.
But the original development was built, I don't know how many years ago. I don't,
It was like 5 or 6 years ago. It wasn't long ago.
So again, this goes back to the conversation of regulations are the mediator between both parties.
Right.
And actually for that development, they had to fill in wetlands to even develop those properties. And it wasn't because, like, the commission obviously doesn't want to see wetlands filled in, but there are certain provisions within the Wetland Protection Act regulations where you may have to do that in order to develop your property. So, you know, some of these things are black and white. And so the regulations are what they are, and both parties try to determine whether there's compliance with that. Again, if there's room for discretion, that's where the commission can take it from there. But sometimes it's not discretionary, and it is black and white.
Right, I understand, but my point is that they followed all the rules then, too, and it didn't
Correct.
work. So why aren't we looking at things differently?
we can't look at things differently, and if the state and federal laws have not kept up with climate change, we don't have the power to do that ourselves. We have to maintain what the law says. That's
No,
what we're trying to do.
I understand. It's just common sense to me. I mean, you've got this development that's flooded out, the basements are flooded. They're looking to put something in here that's going to take more land and make it impervious. And it's just, it's an accident waiting to happen. So let me ask you this. If we get more flooding than we get now, is anybody here going to take care of that for us? Are these gentlemen going to do that?
That would be a private matter. You would have to justify why or how the flooding
Right.
is.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is no. So that's my point. So that's all I got to say.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that unfortunately, the abutters building is located in a floodplain, right? So we didn't create that. And what we've tried to do is make sure that we're not going to make it any worse. But, if that building were to try to get approved today, that would have to be 200 feet away from the river and out of the floodplain, which it's not. And so that's why they get flooding, right? And I'm super empathetic to that. They get flooding, and it's lousy, but it's a result of where that building was placed when it was constructed, not what's happening today.
That might be the case, but also the cement pad that they have over at McClellan Oil that blocks all the water from coming in, the culvert they put in to dump all of that water next to our building would not have been approved at today's either.
Thank you. All right. If there's no more public hearing comments, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And before I entertain a motion for anything else, is there any other questions or comments from the commission members? Not hearing anything. Could I have a motion to approve this notice of intent as discussed at this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Agenda item H is emergency certification for 100 Sawyer's Lane. Is there anybody here for that, or Joe, can you fill us in on the details?
Yes, so this was an emergency certification issued for the removal of several trees. The trees were observed to be dead, dying, decaying, and posing a threat to human health and safety. So I issued the emergency certification, and you can refer to the conditions in the emergency certification if you desire.
All right. Any questions or comments about this emergency certification? Not hearing any. Could I have a motion to ratify the emergency certification?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Agenda item I, emergency certification, 197 Vale Street. Is there anybody here for that? Or Joe, could you fill us in on the details?
Yep, this is an emergency certification for a sewer tie-in work. So crushing of the septic systems, tying into the municipal town sewer. It was due to a failed Title V inspection. So I issued emergency certification, and you can refer to the conditions in that document.
All right. If there's no discussion on this, could I have a motion to ratify the emergency certification?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right. Agenda item J is tree cutting discussion for 740 North Street. Joe, could you fill us in on the details?
I think someone might be here for that.
So if you are here for that,
Yes.
could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Certainly. My name's John Broussard,
And what's your...
50 Germano Drive.
All right, thank you. And you would like
I
to...
submitted something, yeah.
What's that?
I submitted something to
Yes.
to just get it rolling and get it done.
Yeah, you want to go over your restoration plan?
Certainly, yeah,
All right,
as long as.
the floor is yours.
Yeah, to get you to approve it and stuff. But I submitted, and as I said, you've asked me to plant 8 trees. In order to do that, obviously, for 27 years, prior to getting, understanding what was going on back there, obviously, I've been dumping stuff there, grass cuttings, all sorts of stuff. I did have them up there the other day, the landscaper. He raked your area, removed all my debris from the area, and now it's time to, start, obviously, we can start planting trees now. And based on what I put down was trying to figure out, okay, where will they go? And obviously, within the area there, it's apparent, it's your property, the town's property, I should say. We're going to try and stagger them as best we can, because, as I mentioned to Joe, there's a fair amount of rock back there. And so it's hard to really tell where you can place them at this point. But obviously, so I had everything removed. The 8 trees that he's on order with, I wrote down what they were. I don't even know how to pronounce them, but he's the one who did that. There'll be 7 to 8 to 8 to 10, so a little bit bigger than you requested, but that's what's available. And he wants to make sure that obviously he plant them in a mix of peat moss, dehydrated manure, put a ring around it so it'll hold the water, so that they'll grow properly within that area. And hopefully, any questions that you have that, obviously, and just, as I say, this is what I intend to do, to restore it back to the way it was.
I just, thank you for coming in. This is one of those situations where I understand the mistakes that were made. I don't think they were intentional or anything.
Yeah, I don't think any one of the 3 did, yeah.
Unfortunately, if we don't take care of this, then that gives other people the thought that they can do something similar. So we're kind of.
Oh, I fully understand that. I'm sure that, obviously, 3 people don't just do it to, nobody knew. I think everybody took the stone wall
Yeah,
as being what it was. And as I mentioned in my October letter, and I'm sure you saw the picture, there's a big tree that fell over. And if it fell in the wrong direction, it's on my house. So, and again, and I know this was done in 2021. Part of my plan last year was to kind of plant some stuff back there anyway. But then I got the notice because a neighbor came across while the stumps were being ground. And apparently, that's what, and then obviously he must have known, whereas none of the 3 of us, I think, knew. So. Now, obviously, he was probably there when the build happened, and I guess maybe that was part of it, but I don't know.
all right, so if I'm understanding this correctly, this grid is, one side is roughly the rock or the edge of the property line.
Yeah.
And the trees will be planted 10 and 20 feet away from there, across it.
Exactly. And that would leave 5 and 5. Yeah. And then hopefully they'll stagger that way across the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, the location should be based off of the, the annotated image that you provided.
Yeah.
Rather than that grid, because.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this, you said you'd do it by November, or?
Oh, no, I'm hoping to finish by May.
Okay.
End of May. He's planning on the trees mid-May, and then we'd be done by then. So clearly, yeah, it's just a matter of, right now, they've got, there's
what do you call them, little dumpster there, sitting in my backyard because they're laying out the rest of it, you know. And I know another neighbor came over when they were doing that. I don't know if he called you or not, but the guy was raking leaves.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
All right, so this is a restoration plan for just 50.
Just 50, yeah, I don't know what the other people are doing.
Yeah, so I just want to state that on the record, that this
Strictly-
right now is only applying to you. Hopefully, we will get something similar from the other two properties. But how does the commission feel about this? You know, I will entertain a motion to approve the restoration plan for 50 Germano Drive if there's no further discussion.
Okay.
All right. Could I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
And before we move on, Joe, have you heard anything from anybody else?
So we got someone from 30 Germano yesterday, or not yesterday, last meeting. 40 Germano have called about it. So I need to follow up with them, but.
All right. Well, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, they contact us with full restoration plans and we can approve them. All right, next item on the agenda is agenda item K, public hearing, regulation update relating to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D. Joe, can you fill us in on the details for this?
Yeah. So this is a regulation that I was working on for trying to give the commission another option for enforcement. And I was talking with town council with this and drafting it up. So I think this is kind of the final product. So the goal was to create a regulation for the Tewksbury Conservation Commission to properly implement MGL Chapter 40, Section 21D, which is a non-criminal disposition. It's basically a way for boards or commissions within a municipality to kind of issue tickets for violating a portion of the bylaw. There's ways to go about it. The town has already generally adopted this law, but I just wanted to create a regulation that more explicitly addresses the law and proper implementation. So the draft regulation is as an alternative to criminal prosecution in a specific case and pursuant Tewksbury General Bylaws 1.08.01D, 0.010D, and 18.04.210, the Tewksbury Conservation Commission, i.e. the commission, may issue citations under the non-criminal disposition procedures set forth in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 21D, i.e. 21D. The commission's decision to issue citations under 21D shall be taken via vote by more than half of the members present at the public meeting of at least a quorum. With reference to 21D, the Tewksbury Conservation Commission shall be the enforcing persons. The penalty for violation of the Tewksbury Wetland Protection Bylaw, if enforced through the non-criminal disposition procedure described herein, shall be $100 for each day which a violation exists. Violations may include, but are not limited to, unpermitted alterations to wetland resource areas, unpermitted alterations to buffer zone, failure to comply with all conditions listed within an enforcement order, and failure to obtain an appropriate permit through the Tewksbury Conservation Commission, not department. So that's that. So the enforcing persons is the commission. So I figured the commission, before issuing any ticket, would kind of vote to see if that was appropriate. And that's it. So what do you? This is a public hearing. It requires a public hearing because any regulation update we have requires a public hearing. I'd probably recommend just to let this sit for a bit and put put it on the next agenda. But comments are welcome.
My biggest question is, so just the first line, it says, as an alternative to criminal prosecution, does that kind of hold us to certain matters? Because like, and then this is where I'm not a lawyer, but like, the difference between criminal and civil matters, as an example, not to talk about any other ongoing discussions, but if somebody were to accidentally cut down trees on town-owned land, is that a criminal matter or is that a civil matter? And would we be able to use this as a motivation, as a motivator
Yeah.
in those
So
situations?
in that case, I'm not a lawyer either, but this is my understanding. So similar to if your neighbor cut down a tree on your property, you would handle that via tort law, which is you damage my property, I want reparations for that. It's not necessarily a criminal case, it's handled through tort law. So this is a case where there needs to be a specific violation of a bylaw. So cutting down on town-owned land, that's not like explicitly written in a bylaw. That's handled through tort law. If the tree was in a jurisdictional area, then yes, that would be a violation of the bylaw.
All right.
So it's really just meant as another mechanism, probably to be used sparingly, but maybe it adds a little bit more backbone for the.
It has more teeth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think we need something
Yeah,
like
to get
this.
people's attention.
Yeah, and this is not a, you know, instantly we just start handing out fines. I hope that
Will it keep our
this
tax rate
commission
down?
and future commissions would use this as a last resort.
So I will say, I did think that having the commission as the enforcing persons, because per the law, you have to identify and specify an enforcing persons. So it could be the agent that would do that, but I don't know. I felt like it was more appropriate to have the commission kind of vote on that.
I agree with that. Why put the person in front of the bus that stands there? Let it come through this.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's a good choice.
but I do agree that we should sit on
Yeah,
this
I say we
and let it
just-
marinate a
right.
little bit. So, despite nobody else being in this room, this is a public hearing. If anybody from the public would like to get up and make a comment, now is the time to do so, but because we are continuing this regulation discussion, you will have additional time the next time we discuss this. With that being said, could I have a motion to continue the regulation update relating to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D to the next available meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right. Old business, new business. I actually received a email from the town clerk warning us about committee appointments. Steve, you are the current Community Preservation Committee. Your term is about to expire, apparently.
Does that mean I get to leave?
If you,
That was too easy.
if you don't want to do it,
I have a meeting, I have a meeting in 2 weeks or 3 weeks
All right.
on that. Yeah, I'll continue it.
All right, so could somebody nominate?
Oh, someone else wants to do it.
Yeah, if anybody else wants to do it, by all means, like, it doesn't have to be you, but if, you know, if,
I just took it because everyone else was ducking under the table.
yeah,
Right,
like,
Right.
I'll gladly do it, like, it doesn't matter to me.
What is it? I don't know what,
Community preservation, 2 meetings a year,
so
Yeah.
you're on that,
yes.
It's with other committees throughout town and,
Yeah, there's a requisite for every, I think, committee to have a representative there. Pat Collin used to do it, so I just figured I just take it.
All right, so I've heard one nomination. Do you accept the nomination?
Of course.
All right. And do I have a motion to approve the nomination?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Congratulations. I hope I did that correctly. All right, any other old business, new business, or admin reports?
I'm retiring. It's been a pleasure, Tewksbury.
Somehow after this meeting, I'm not sure if I completely believe you. All right, next meeting is May 1st, 2024. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.